Well, hello everyone and welcome back to a beautiful Thursday here in southwestern Manitoba. And as is kind of becoming the schedule, oh I hate that word, today is kind of a permaculture day, and we are going to start while there is a nice shade patch going over that new garden we built last week. Get some peas and beans planted in there, hopefully get some, well, underground structures going to kind of hold everything in, check erosion from those heavy rainstorms, and I'll show you how it looks with those logs in place. I've got to rearrange them because I'm not quite happy with the aesthetic. They're not quite arranged right, but you'll see in a minute, and yeah, I think it's going to work out really well. So let's get started. Oh yes, the other thing we were going to look at today, because it kind of falls under permaculture in my opinion, is mead making. Over the last 2 days, Chox and I have been harvesting Saskatoon berries out the front, because the robins have made it quite apparent if we don't do it, they will. We've acquired almost a liter of these things, give or take a little bit of nibbling on the way. So I figure a liter of berries, a liter of honey, that doesn't leave me a lot of water I need to put in there. And yeah, we'll get to all that a little bit later on in the video. So, to the huegel mound for peas and beans. Here you can get a look at what I did with the logs around the edge. I think that is going to work as a general idea for just kind of holding soil in there as I top this up and keeping the mulch in. However, you can see from the arrangement of the sized chunks here, I'd like them to flow a little more smoothly into each other. So yeah, there will be some wiggling and jiggling of those as I find other logs in the firewood pile that maybe would do better. But let's take a look at what's already in here to start things off. We've got the one tomato on the end. This is definitely looking happier than it was in its little styrofoam cup. And these 6 along the middle, getting a little bit more visible to the camera. Maybe not this one here. So I think they are taking root in our brand new bed, but as I've said before, I don't expect much out of them. I mean, this one here, it's got a little tiny tomato on it, but that was undoubtedly there when it was planted, and there were 6 of these things in a single styrofoam cup. So yeah, I mean, this one's got a little itty bitty mater on it too. Let's get that in a better angle. Can I get that in a better angle? There we go. Another little tiny tomato plant here, and a little tiny tomato plant there, and a more obvious one there. Today then, I'm just going to put in some of these Sugar Snap edible pod peas. I eat the pods on most peas, so I'm starting to wonder if I'm doing something wrong there. But I'm just going to put those along the front. Peas are a fairly short season thing, so we might actually get some harvest out of that. But again, like the tomatoes, mostly I'm interested in root structure to hold things in place. And I'm just going to cut the peas and the beans off right at the soil come this fall, because it's my understanding if you want the nitrogen boost from them, you got to leave the roots in or something like that. Maybe a more experienced individual can let me know if that is the case, but until I hear otherwise, that is the plan. So I need to get my kneeling cardboard and start planting some peas and beans. Okay, well, it doesn't get much more basic than planting peas. I just took my handy little stick here, stuffed it about 1 inch into the ground, put a pea in all of them, and then ended up putting doubles into most of them, so I didn't want another half-open pack around. I have plenty of those, but as you can see from the spacing of the holes, there are plenty of peas that just went into this thing. So something's bound to come of all that. I'm gonna water that in, close in those holes, start on the beans in the back. So that whole pack cost $1.25. I don't know about where you live, but even if it produces, half a pound of peas, I probably got my money back there. It's probably the same with the beans. I mean, they're $1.25 for that pack too, assuming I even paid full price for them, which I doubt. Try and buy things on discount whenever possible. Which to me is part of the permaculture thing too. We don't get a lot of money in this life, so when you can make it last longer by buying things for less money, that qualifies to me. I mean, I know I have a strange understanding of what necessarily means permaculture, or what permaculture necessarily means, but yeah, it's just the way I look at it. Anyway, beans. Again, much like with the peas, I just took my little poking stick, made holes at approximately 1 inch down, in a semi-standard, but ultimately pretty random sort of spacing, all the way along the back. Every hole got at least one, then there were extras, so lots of holes got 2. Not too worried about that though, based on the low sprouting rates of beans I've had so far this year. Not expecting this to be overrun, you know? So here's a fun random hack for you rain savers like myself. If you've got an IBC tote like this, standard watering can, gets to be a bit of a pain to try and fill this. So what I ended up doing is I have this water bottle that I cut in half for that mini ponic system ages ago. As it turns out, that fits in there quite nicely. It'll hang on. That fits under. I need 2 hands for it, but we'll try here. Hold it up with my leg. Fill this up. Pour it through here like a funnel. Show you that in a second, I guess. I'm not going with a full fill on this one. It's for demonstration purposes only. Anyway, even with the bad angle there, it is going into the watering can. Works better if you hold it up, but camera. Anyway, so with one hand holding it, one hand pouring it, it all goes in there. You don't make a mess like this. Trust me, that does work better than trying to just fill the watering can off the tote. So I am going to double hand fill that, water everything in, and then we're going to go get started processing those Saskatoon berries and making that next batch of mead. Well, Melomel, I guess. Tucked in, watered in, sleep tight little seeds. I hope to see you in a week or 2. Could be quite interesting. Peas along the front there, maters in the middle, beans on the back. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So far our total cash investment in this garden is the $250 I just spent on those seeds. If, as I said earlier, I actually paid full price, which I generally don't. Come the end of the season, seeds are on 2 for $1, sometimes 3 for $1 around here, so I tend to buy them then and plan all winter and plant them in the spring. Well, summer. It's Manitoba. Spring still got a lot of snow. For the next step in today's grand adventure, what we're looking at here is approximately 4 cups of mostly ripe Saskatoon berries. We did grab some that were a little early, but as you can see, the bulk of them have a really nice dark kind of purple color. I'm very curious to see what that's going to do to the coloration of our Melomel. And yeah, very curious to know how much of this flavor is going to come across in it. Okay, so it seems to me that I did a lot of things wrong with that first batch of mead, and I'm probably going to do a lot of things wrong with this first batch of Melomel, but just bear with me, okay? I'm going to turn this up to about 1/4 of full temperature, and I want to heat these up a little bit because my thinking is that will help them explode and get more of the flavor out of the juice. We're also going to add a little bit of water to this so I can eventually pour it all into the jug. And this time around, I'm also planning on actually heating up my honey and putting it into a liquid state before we put it into the jug as well. So hopefully a few stages along this should work better. I'm planning on giving this at least 3 months before I get, you know, all hopeful and stuff. But we will, of course, be checking back on it well, every couple of weeks, I'm sure, just to see how it looks sitting on its shelf downstairs. But I need to clean up a few things, I need to prep a few things, and I need to sterilize a few things. So we're going to let these cook and check back in a little bit. While I'm waiting on those berries, I'll just start activating this yeast. I'm still using the 1118 champagne type yeast. Got some lukewarm water here. This needs to sit for a little bit. As I understand it anyway, this needs to sit for a little bit. So while our yeast is being activated, our berries are being warmed, I'm going to pour the 1.5 kilograms of honey that I'm using in this batch into the water here so I can dissolve it, mix it up properly. Yeah, see, Mr. Bear does learn. Maybe not at speed, but I do learn. So anyway, I'm going to pour these in and get back to it. After applying a little bit of heat and a little bit of potato masher loving, that's what our Saskatoon berries look like now. I had to get a little creative, cut the top off of a soda bottle, so I have a large enough funnel to get those crushed up berries in there. And I'm not looking forward to washing this out when this is done, but I think it'll be worth it. So I'm now going to transfer these through the funnel into here, and then we'll get back to it. I don't even want to try doing this with one hand. Here we are now with all those Saskatoon berries in there. Kind of an interesting side note, as they started to cool off, they look like they are almost as full of the natural pectin as the crab apples are, because they gelled up really fast. So I am going to have to try making a Saskatoon berry jelly with basically just Saskatoon berries and see how that works out, because yeah, that was smelling good. The little bit I stole to taste was tasting pretty good, but of course it tastes good at Saskatoon berries. Now, I've got to check on the state of my wort, which I don't think is quite ready yet. I think must. That's the must? That's the wort? I don't know. Anyway, my honey is warming up and getting a little closer to being actually mixed into the liquid there. I believe the next step, according to all the tips I was given, was to pour this into this, then this into this, and top it up. So that's what I'm going to do, and I really hope I get it right, because otherwise I have wasted a lot of tarts worth of Saskatoon berries in there, and I don't want to think of that as an option. Alright, it's a little heavy, a little awkward, probably a little full. There's a look at our yeast and honey and water. I am going to use 2 hands to pour most of this in, but near the end I may try a single hand so we can get a shot. I am going to have to beg your forgiveness, as that just didn't really appeal to me as a one-handed job. But here we have our finished product, and perhaps next time when I brew something like this, I'll have Chox along to work camera. Got a nice layer of mashed Saskatoon berries in there. Everything seems fairly well mixed to me. I made sure I mixed the yeast really well into the honey that was already liquefied and into the water, but not so warm as to pasteurize it, just warm enough to kind of liquefy it. Poured all that through the Saskatoon berries. Now I'm going to fill this up with sanitizing solution, give that another blast at the bottom there, cap it, date it, and take it to the dungeon. Although the dungeon's kind of cold, so maybe I'll take it to the studio. So there we have it, all tucked away, and it's a nice little Mexican blanket upstairs where it should be safe. Nice and warm, not too hot, but still nice and warm as compared to the dungeon, which is fairly cold. So yes, waiting is now. And that, I guess, is where we're going to leave it for today. So thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate it when you stick around to the end of these videos, keeping me company. Always appreciate your feedback and your constructive criticism in the comments. So please, by all means, feel free to leave any thoughts or advice down there. I do try and get well, to using as many of those pieces of advice as I can, but let's face it, I'm a forgetful bear, and there are a lot of you out there giving me a lot of good advice, so sometimes I don't get it all. Please don't take it personal. It's just the way it is. Anywho, I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is looking like it should be fabulous weather, so we will be outside checking on all them chili peppers. Alright, everybody, I will see you then.